Love to talk to you about some games you covered this week, but unfortunately Mother Nature, just one of those early April weeks here in the spring sports season.
Yeah, one of those typical early season April weeks, cold and rainy, and then it rains for 2 to 3 days, and then the fields are sloppy on it almost takes the fields another extra day to recover. So hopefully we've turned a corner as far as today goes, and weather-wise for the spring sports season.
I do want to talk to you about a story you had in the Press of Atlantic City regarding Mike Trout's #1 jersey at Millville. Really a cool story. I actually did a similar one for SNJtoday.com. But for people that don't know what the history of that #1 jersey is at Millville, explain to our listeners and how neat an honor that is for a kid each year to be picked to wear that jersey.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing, and it was in our paper on Friday. It's still on our website. Mike Trout wore #1 at Millville, so after he graduated, obviously historic career. The Millville coaches kind of kicked around, hey, what are we going to do with the jersey? Do we retire it? Do we, exactly what do you do with it? Does nobody ever wear it again? And I think they came up with a neat idea that they actually kind of borrowed from East Carolina University, which is where Mike had signed a letter of intent to go to school if he had not been drafted by the Angels, and of course gone on to be the best player in baseball. They decided to keep the jersey alive and give it to a senior each year who kind of is not necessarily the best player on the team, but is a guy who really represents, Millville baseball, buys into Millville baseball, a guy who kind of epitomizes what the coaches want in a Millville player. And to me, it's just a great thing to go out there and see Mike's #1 jersey. Obviously, we all know he's been very generous with the program. He and Body Armor helped, renovate their field. This year, he donated the Lunar Nike Vapor Lunar Trout cleats to the Millville kids. So I think just seeing the #1 jersey out there reminds you that, hey, Mike Trout played there. And it reminds you of Trout's dedication. Like I said in the story, he could have easily have gone to a parochial school. He could have easily have gone to a IMG Academy in Florida or a warm weather school to take advantage of his talent. But what made him special is he stayed in Millville, with his friends and played baseball with his friends and was dedicated to the town. And I think when you look at that #1 jersey, it reminds you of that, and it's good to keep that connection alive.
Infielder A.J. Clark wearing that #1 for Millville this season. And Clark and his teammates, they have a big game later this afternoon, Mike, as Millville takes on Northern Burlington in that Grand Slam Classic Tournament Championship game, 2 o'clock start up at Washington Township. This is a young Millville team. Obviously, A.J. is a senior, the leader of that team, wearing that #1 jersey. But to be honest, we didn't know what we had with this Millville team so far this season, and they've been pretty impressive. I know you saw them lose in extra innings to Mainland on opening day, but they're making quite a run through this Grand Slam tournament.
Yeah, when I talked to the Millville coaches, that I saw their opening season loss to Mainland, close game, extra innings. Mainland wins by 1 run. Of course, Mainland, the defending state Group 3 champion, and bringing back a veteran team. Millville's got a lot of young players on the team, and their coaches seem to think that, hey, maybe they were a year or 2 away. Well, maybe they're growing up a little faster than the Thunderbolts coaches thought. They're 3-1. They're in the final of that Grand Slam tournament out in Washington Township. They played Northern Burlington, who's one of the top teams in South Jersey. And I think a guy to watch on Millville, sophomore Buddy Kennedy. He's really done it on the mound and with the bat so far this season. And it seems like Millville, we talk about Mike Trout, it seems like Millville always has a name. Buddy Kennedy, of course, is the grandson of a former Phillies player and former Milwaukee Brewer, Don Money. So Buddy, I think he's hit 2 or 3 home runs. He's pitched well in his 2 outings that he's been on the mound so far. And Millville with a chance to sort of, gain a little attention today with a win over Northern Burlington and maybe boost Cape Atlantic League baseball too a lot, if they would have come away and win that Grand Slam tournament today.
Checking in with Mike McGarry, Press of Atlantic City, here on the South Jersey Sports Report, 97.3 ESPN FM. Mike, we caught up with Brian Carmichael, head coach of the Egg Harbor Township Silver Eagles baseball team, to start the show. And, you're seeing a lot of these local teams go south on these trips, which is a really neat deal, #1. But you're seeing a lot of these teams pick up wins down there. So they're playing against teams that are supposedly on the same competition level as they get grouped together by these tournaments. And, you look at a team like an EHT with a successful trip to Myrtle Beach. I think, St. Augustine was just down there as well, and I think they go 3-0 down there. Buna successful down there. So, what is it about going south and getting that extra experience for these teams while the rest of the clubs are up here and based on the weather not playing?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. First of all, I think it's a selling point for these programs, and I think you're going to see. You saw a large number of programs do it this year. I think you're going to see even more and more programs do it. These kids grow up playing travel baseball. These kids grow up traveling to big tournaments in Cooperstown. These teams grow up heading south down to Maryland and even some cases South Carolina. So these kids are used to traveling. They're used to playing for teams that travel. And I think they almost not demand it, but sort of expect it. Hey, I'm going to go to a high school baseball program that's traveled. I've traveled since I was 8 years old. Now that I'm playing high school baseball, that's not going to stop. So I think, these programs that sort of want to, separate themselves and present themselves as, elite programs and things that offer kids opportunities, they're gonna travel. I think you're gonna see more and more teams do it. I think obviously it's a trend, and then I think you can't overlook the opposite. I mean, or the obvious rather. I mean, you're getting a chance to get out of April weather, go down there, play a lot of baseball, sharpen your skills against teams up here. Probably spend a lot of time in the gym this week, hitting and trying to work on their fielding indoors. So, but I think the biggest thing is I think it's a mark for these programs. These baseball players grow up playing for these high-powered travel teams that travel all over the place. And I think when they get to high school, they sort of expect the same experience.
Again, not a ton of game action to talk to you about, but on the softball side, Mike, a really neat feature you guys had in the Press of Atlantic City this week, the My Life feature, and you caught up with Atlantic City catcher Olivia Delston. Of course, AC going on one of those magical runs last season all the way to the South Jersey championship game before losing to Washington Township. And Olivia, she's really been the stalwart behind the plate there.
Yeah, she's obviously last year they really came from nowhere to get to that South Jersey Group 4 championship. So far they're off to a 1-1 start this year, and Olivia has done well with the bat so far this season. And that My Life feature, you talk about it, we try to give people, it appears in Friday's paper, still online, you can find it. We try to give people sort of insight into what these kids are like off the field. We see them, in pictures, we write about what they do in games, but we try to give them some insight into their, their personalities off the field. Olivia, obviously a great kid, going to Baruch College in New York City, interested in politics, maybe becoming a political analysis for a cable network. So that's all good stuff. And obviously, shows that these kids are well-rounded individuals, and then they not only can do it on the athletic field, but a lot of them are just great students and great kids off the field. And we just try to give readers, a glimpse of what we know from talking to these kids on a day in and day out basis.
On the track and field scene, Mike, of course, Bridgeton Relay is going on today. I know it's an event you've covered in the past. And for people that don't know, I mean, this is one of the oldest meets in the state, right?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I'm headed out to Bridgeton right now, taking a break on what seems to be sometime 2 or 3 day trip to Bridgeton. It's Bridgeton so far away. But, obviously the Bridgeton Relay is 70-something years, the state's oldest relay meet. Wilt Chamberlain competed in this event. The actor, the Little House on the Prairie guy, Michael Landon, threw the javelin in this event. So it's obviously got a lot of history. It doesn't have as many teams as it once had, maybe about 15, 20 years ago. There's been some other relay meets that have popped up this weekend that have kind of siphoned off these teams. But still, a lot of Cape Atlantic League teams go out there. It's a great event, and, Bridgeton a couple of years ago renovated their track and field facility, and it's really one of the best facilities, I'd say, in the entire state of New Jersey. So, I mean, if you're a track and field athlete and you're looking to, put up a good performance early in the season, Bridgeton's the place to do it, and it's just a really neat event, well-run, and an historic event, too. It's been part of sports seasons for over 70 years.
Was I hearing things, or did you just work in a Little House on the Prairie reference into an answer there?
I did slip in a little Laura Ingalls on you there, so there you go.
Who are some people to keep an eye on out there today, Mike? I know for the hometown Bridgeton Bulldogs there, Marquise Bell, super sophomore, state high jump champion, I believe. Certainly one of those guys to keep an eye on. Right.
Marquise Bell won the state high jump championships, state Group 2 high jump championship as a freshman last year, so he's obviously someone to watch. The Egg Harbor Township track and field team is out there. They always kind of circle the Bridgeton meet. The EHT team has won Coach Ryan Smith, the tradition of the meet means a lot to him. He's talked a lot about that in the years. So you've got, middle distance run or distance runner Vincent Del Conte out there. You've got sprinter Alvin Abrams out there. So an EHT coming off a good performance at the Buena Regional Relays last weekend. So, obviously look for EHT to have a decent or a very good performance, a very good showing out there at Bridgeton today.
Bigger picture question, Mike, I should say. What's jumped out to you, maybe any sport, spring sports season so far? Obviously, the weather's been a huge storyline, but, is there a team or a player in one of the sports or teams, for that matter, that we haven't talked about that's sort of making some headlines and should be getting some attention?
Well, I think you look around a couple things, and obviously, we're about a week and a half into the spring sports season, and the spring sports season to me always gets off to a little jumpy start, obviously because of weather. Some teams take off for Easter break. Some teams travel, and it's tough to kind of keep up with some teams that are playing down in Florida or South Carolina. But look at the ACIP baseball team, kind of off to an impressive 4-0 start there in the National Conference. 4 good wins for that program. And then I turn and look at some of the lacrosse teams. I mean, St. Augustine lacrosse with a big win over Shawnee on Thursday. St. Augustine kind of, obviously a traditional lacrosse power, but they seem to every year sort of battle with Shawnee to see who's the number one team in South Jersey. So you got to give St. Augustine the edge right there. And then you look at some of the Cape Atlantic League lacrosse teams. The Middle Township team with Bridget Rusky, I think she's got 20-something goals in 3 games, really just off to a phenomenal start. So some Cape athletes doing some good things. The Lower Cape May girls track and field team with Quinn Bethel, high jumper and long jumper, winning a team title at the Jim Camber and Buena Regional Relays last year. So obviously you've got some traditional powers doing some good things, and you've got some newcomers kind of making their mark this spring.
You tied in nicely with some things we've been talking about, Mike. Of course, we're going to talk some Middle Township lacrosse later on in the show. We talked some ACIT baseball last week. Hey, enjoy your pilgrimage to Bridgeton later today, and thanks for hopping on as always.
Hey, no problem, Mike. Always a pleasure. Thanks.
All right, Mike McGarry, press of Atlantic City, helping us break down the very young spring sports season here.